Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I am your co-host, Maria Casillas, joined here by Cody. Cody, how are you today?
I'm doing all right. How you doing today?
I, too, am doing all right. Thank you for asking. I am looking forward to having this chat with you today. But before we do that, I want to make sure that our listeners reminded that they know that they are allowed to not just rate and review our show, but also let us know what you think. Please, we look forward to hearing from you. We would love to have you join us in our Facebook group. It is a growing group of some really incredible coaches, some who you're going to start to hear from on the podcast. So we're looking forward to having some interviews coming up real soon. And just wanted to let you know that the way you do that is go to the Financial Coaches the New Money Habits Financial Coaches group. And that's where we will be able to see you there. So Cody, as you can hear in my voice and in my stuttering around, things have been kind of a little bit crazy lately. And I want to talk to you about that. I haven't seen you for real in a little while. I haven't seen you in a little while. So why don't you tell me how things are going for you too?
Yeah, well, I'm right there with you. Things are...
Okay, this will be good.
we haven't been able to connect to, like, one, record the podcast, but also just, like, catch up in, I don't know, weeks, right?
It's been weeks.
And, it's been a number of reasons. I'm sure you have your own reasons, but, I have my reasons too. And it's been, life's been pretty crazy and a lot of changes, but yeah, I mean, what's been going on with you? Let's just chat about it. Let's catch up.
All right. Well, I want to make sure we don't make things too much of downers. So there have been some really good things that have happened. It was tax season. I'm done with my taxes. So that's really good. It always feels like this thing like just kind of hovers over you for a little while. And then when it's done, it's done. Unfortunately, that did come with some negativity as well. My daughter, this is her first year technically as an independent, although we're still claiming her as a dependent on ours. But she's 18, and so she was able to file this year, and until she wasn't able to file because we found out that somebody else filed for her on her behalf. In other words, just grabbed her social and her name and went with it. So we've been dealing with a lot of identity theft and fraud and just all of those fun things. So our fearless leader, Mike Keneally, did share with me some good information on just being able to do some like fraud insurance type thing, identity theft insurance. So we're probably going to go ahead and tack that on. And I've learned some things about the IRS as well in the process. So there's that silver lining for me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else has gone on. Well, my daughter, her homeschooling is just about done, at least for the community section of that. So we're kind of winding down for that. But of course, you always have to ramp up before you wind down. So that's been going on for us. And my husband's doing a lot of traveling lately. So I've been kind of holding down the fort by myself. So yeah, that's what's been going on here. How about you?
Oh, where to begin?
You got a new house, didn't you?
Yeah, so if you are listening to the podcast, you're missing out. If you're watching on YouTube, you're like, whoa, Cody's got a new background, and it's super cool. No, I'm just kidding. I did end up moving, which is awesome.
Congratulations.
Very, very excited. Definitely a much needed upgrade with a lot more space for the growing family, and the fact that, both myself and my wife work from home. My wife is not working out of a closet anymore, which is awesome. And I am not sharing a office with my 1-year-old son, which is awesome.
Yes. I don't think you ever had the crib in the background, but I'm pretty sure at one point you turned your camera just like 45 degrees for me, and I saw a crib over there.
There was definitely a crib.
Totally believe that you were sharing that with your son.
Yeah. So no crib anymore. Now I got this cool little office china cabinet thing, and I got some of my favorite stuff, my favorite books, 75 hard in there. Got some Lions gear. got some like The Office, like the TV show figurine kind of stuff,
I
like,
love it.
a chess thing right there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of work, a little bit of play, a little bit of inspiration, all that kind of stuff.
Wonderful.
But yeah, that's been some good stuff. But I will say, I gotta be honest with you, Maria, there has been these past 3 weeks in particular have been very trying for me, I will say. It seems like as soon as I signed those papers to close on this house, everything has just gone downhill. Now, I know I've gone through phases like this before, and I know that, things will turn around. They always do. And every time that I do go through this, I deal with it a little bit better. I remember the first time I had gone through like a pretty serious lull. I was very, very like dealing with a lot of self-doubt, feeling defeated, stuff like that, like very deeply. Now it's still there a little bit, but it's pretty shallow. Like I have a lot of confidence, I have a lot of faith that things are going to turn around. It's just a matter of time, really. But as soon as I signed that closing document, my car broke down.
Oh no.
Yeah. Yeah. So I took it into the shop and they're like, it's going to be $1,800. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I paid the $1,800 and then I drove it off the lot after it was quote unquote fixed. And my car kept going, which is the reason why I brought it in the first place. And I was like, well, what the heck? This should be fixed. I just spent $1,800. So I took it back and they were like, oh no, that's the stuff that we said needed to be fixed last time.
Oh, for goodness
this
sake.
new stuff is something totally different. And I'm like, well, I pushed the other stuff off for a reason because it wasn't super pressing. Oh, no. This is pressing. So how much is this pressing thing going to cost for the reason I brought it in for the first place? And they said, oh yeah, okay, now we understand. $1,600.
Oh no.
I'm like, listen, I drive a 2012 Ford Fiesta with 180,000 miles on it. Okay, I'm not going to spend $3,400 to fix this car that's probably worth $4,500. Like, just not going to do it. So I decided that I'm just going to not fix it and just drive it short distances until I break down on the side of the road and then walk home. So that's
a real Fiesta.
yeah, exactly. So that's my plan. But then aside from that, like we've had like a lot of unexpected expenses come up. Like $500 here, $500 there, $500 there. And some stuff with my wife and her job are, happening. We've been having a ton of internet issues ever since we moved. And I think I just finally, literally today, got it figured out. So I've had to push calls off and I haven't been able to have a lot of meetings and calls because of the internet issues. And because of that, I have not signed on any new clients in the last couple of weeks. And I haven't had too much income in the last couple of weeks. And I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. This is all happening at once. And it's making everything seem amplified more than it probably actually is. Yeah. So, you could say that I'm definitely in a little bit of a lull. But I do have some faith and some confidence that things can and will turn around here pretty soon.
They will. And I'm really, really encouraged that you compared right now to the time that, like, I think you described it as the first time that you were in that lull. Because you said then it really, really hit you. But this time it's more of a shallow feeling. I think that's really important.
It's still there, but it's not nearly as like, oh my God, like, should I go find a job? Kind of thing.
Yeah. So that's why I'm bringing it up because I don't know how many months ago we talked on this show actually about, it was like a U curve. I don't remember what it was called specifically, but you described it and, you start at the top and things are really great. And then as you, move along, do you know what I'm talking about?
That was literally our second episode ever.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm
so
shocked I even remember. But I will tell you this. I was totally trying to describe that to my husband the other day because as you know, about 7 months ago, I started working out and, I experienced that. It wasn't a high per se, but it was like some level of enjoyment. I still enjoyed it, even though I hated it. Like it wasn't fun, but I still enjoyed going, whether it was connecting with the people or just knowing that I could do it. And then there's always that sense of like anticipation, I think. That was 7 months ago. And in the last 2-3 weeks, I have been like, oh my gosh, I really don't like to do this. Like I got sick, just like a cold type of thing, but it was right at Easter time. And it was at all of this, like I had been doing all this buildup where I wasn't sleeping very well and my body just totally needed a rest. So I'm like, you know what? It's okay to just sleep in these few days. So I slept in. I didn't work out those 3 days. And then the next 2 days, instead of going super early, I did go, but I went like at 9 a.m. instead of 5:30. Well, I don't know if because that was 2 weeks ago now. And I don't know if it was that's kind of started it, but like even just trying to get back into it has been just emotionally and mentally hard to do. And I was describing to him, I'm like, it's like, it's hard now. I don't feel like I'm having any real progress and it's not fun. And I was referencing you and your U curve. And I'm like, I'm in the pit. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, the U curve pit that Cody's talking about. He goes, I have no idea what you are talking about right now. And so I tried my best to explain it to him. But the reason I bring it up is because the following statement that I made to him was, but I'm just going to keep going. At this point, it's pure mind over matter. And that's what I said to him. And I have just kept on going. And I'm bringing that up because when you said, last time it hit you harder, this time it's a little bit more shallow. I think that's because there's like this sense of logic that comes with it. Like, you've stated at least 2 or 3 times just in our conversation today that it's going to get better, that it just takes time, that you have that trust, you have that faith. And it's almost like, because we add some logic in there, we're not as emotionally driven by what is worrying us, etc. So I just wanted to point that out to you because I know I'm not the only one going through it, obviously, because you are too. But B, anyone who's listening to this, I certainly don't want you to think that we're just trying to, drop all of our woes on you and be like, whoa, that was a pick me up. But realize that there is that sense of it's going to be okay. And we know that logically. And so we just keep showing up and doing the same thing that we know works every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, just so you guys know, like we pressed record on today's episode for a reason, right? Like we didn't just come on here and be like, hey, let's catch up with each other and complain a little bit. Like that's not like the whole point of this, right? Like we kind of talked a little bit before this conversation. We kind of caught up with each other a little bit. And we basically said, hey, like with everything that has been happening on both of our ends over the last couple of weeks, there is a lesson to be found in all of this, right? And Maria, I forgot exactly how you put it, but that's where we kind of decided, hey, like we should actually talk about this on the podcast and just stop talking now and just press record and start talking, right? So how did you put it exactly?
And it's actually not even mine. I don't remember where I heard it, but the concept was that it's not a good time to abandon ship when all that you need to do is like when the ship needs to be steered. And so I kind of feel like that's the area that we are in. It's so tempting sometimes to be like, well, that didn't work, like with the workouts. Well, that's obviously not the right one. I should just go do something different, or with our coaching business, or with the house, or with the car, or you didn't even, honestly, you could have just been like, I'm just going to trade this thing in. I don't even want it. But you didn't even do that. You totally just said, I'm going to keep it and I'm going to use it this way. And I steered the ship a little bit differently rather than just abandoning it altogether. And I just think that this is kind of one of those seasons that we're in right now where it's tempting to abandon ship. And we really just need to steer it a little differently.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, for us, we've been coaches for several years now. I mean, myself, I'm coming up on 3 years in June, actually about just over a month away. Mm-hmm. And then you've been doing coaching for
6 years.
6 years? I was going to say 7. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, we're seasoned coaches. And, the idea of like when things get tough, whether it be in my case with, the coaching business, to where, you're in a lull, you haven't signed new clients, you're having internet issues, you had this car breakdown, all this kind of stuff. And then on your end with like the personal side of things with, the taxes and, the workouts and everything like that. it does go back to remembering your why, right? And that's that U curve, like, that pit, right? That you referenced, that goes back to our second episode, which is, finding your why, right? And that pit it's called the pit of despair.
Oh, look at
Yes. Yeah, it's called the pit of
that.
despair. So,
Mm-hmm.
but, we started doing these things, whether it be our coaching business or, this house or your health or whatever it might be. We started those things for a reason, right? And a reason that has deep, deep meaning, like it's a very strong why, and to just say, hey, things are tough. I'm just going to throw in the towel on this business, or I'm going to throw in the towel on my workout plan or my diet plan or whatever it might be. To just do that, you're not treating yourself well. You're not really showing yourself like that love and that compassion and that care, by just throwing in the towel, and it doesn't solve anything either to just, abandon ship, as you were to say. The only way to solve the problem is to solve the problem and to, adjust course, steer the ship a little bit, and to keep going. As hard and as exhausting and tiring that it might be sometimes, that's what you're going to find the most fulfillment from. And when you do get on the other side of this pit of despair, you are going to be so much stronger for it, and you're going to learn so much more from it. And your overall life is just going to be better because of it. And, even with my own experience, that is very prevalent. Because I told you, like, the first time that I experienced this, I legit thought about closing up shop because it was so demoralizing to me. To whereas I've gone through this so many times now. I think I go through this like once every 5 months, I feel.
Yeah, it's definitely cyclical.
Yeah. It's
And
it's like once every 5 months. And
what I find fascinating about it is that oftentimes our cycles are very similar. Like they almost match up, and we don't even know it until we reconvene and start sharing things. And it's like, wow, that's really kind of crazy. So I'm wondering if it's also cyclical for a lot of our listeners.
I guarantee it is.
It might not, well, and they might actually be on the same cycle too, but if we don't release these on the day we record them, then maybe it feels like we're off. But I wonder how prevalent that is. It's really interesting to me.
Yeah. But, going through those cycles, because we didn't abandon ship, now that we're in one again, we're handling it a little bit better. A little bit better than the last one, and the last one was a little bit better than the one prior to that, and so on and so forth. And I know that the next one, when we reconvene in 5 more months, and I'm sitting here and I'm saying, yeah, I don't know about things, then that one will be a little bit better than this one,
Yep.
And I know that to be true because of the track record that I've had personally, and I know it to be true because of what I do for a living. We're financial coaches, and we work with clients every day who go through these similar cycles within their own lives, and we help them through those, and we see how this all works. So you're going to be stronger for it. It's the old adage of what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So if you're going through one of those times right now to where maybe you are in a pit of despair, to where maybe you have had things be good for a while and all of a sudden they're just not, or maybe you've been working really, really hard and you've gotten some results, but you haven't gotten the result yet, and you're just tired, and you're not inspired, and you're questioning things, and it's not fun anymore, and all that kind of stuff. If you were to just keep pushing and keep steering and keep chugging along, it will become fun again, and you will have that motivation spark again, and you'll feel on fire. Once
Yeah.
again, I know that to be true.
I agree with that. And if I may, I'm just going to add two small things in there. One is gratitude, because
Mhm.
the idea of just pushing forward feels like okay, but that it just, there's nothing that's selfless that comes out of that for me.
Right.
So, there are two things that I would like to just point out that I've been working on while this, I really wouldn't have called it despair, to be honest with you, at least the way I'm feeling. But while we're in this pit of despair, one of them is to focus on gratitude, realizing that there is so much to be grateful for, and the things that I can do now that I couldn't do 7 months ago, for example, recognizing, the gifts that we have, all of the relationships that I've either formed in the last 7 months, or the community that I've been a part of, or all of those things are just, they really help to take the focus off of myself and keep going. The other thing also helps keep the focus off myself. And that is to kind of do some volunteer stuff. Now, I don't necessarily mean that you have to go, volunteer at a shelter specifically or something like that. But, for example, my house isn't always super put together. I know that is a shocker for you. It's not really a shocker for anybody who knows me, but it kind of drives me nuts sometimes when it's not put together. And I decided on tomorrow, actually, I'm going to go to a friend's house who her house was literally covered in crap because their sewer backed up and ruined all of their floors, and just they had a flood of poop in their whole house. Yeah, look, it sounds kind of gross, doesn't it?
It sounds crappy.
Yeah, right. It happened
Mhm.
right before Christmas, and they've been living in Airbnb houses for 4 or 5 months now. They actually just got put back into their house a couple weeks ago, and their floors got finished, but all their stuff is all over the place. They haven't had a chance to put it all back together. And this is a family with 7 kids, so you can imagine how
Oh
much
yeah.
stuff is all over. So I volunteered to go over there and help her tomorrow, and that was no big deal to me. But when she responded today and just said, yes, that would be great, but I feel so bad because I know you could be catching up on your own stuff. I'm like, you know what? I don't know that I would be. You know what I'm saying? Like, I probably would just be, I don't know, overwhelmed and frustrated and just looking at my stuff and not actually getting caught up on it. Whereas if I take it out of me and put myself into someone else's mess, I absolutely know I'll be able to help that person. And hopefully, I mean, even if it doesn't, I know it's helped her, but hopefully it will motivate me to come home and be like, oh, now I can just do this. I mean, at least my floors aren't covered with poop, hers aren't anymore either, but, but you see where I'm going with that? So gratitude and helping others, maybe even in a situation that's similar to ours or one that's worse than ours. I just think that really helps get through that moment where all you're trying to do is push past whatever it is you're feeling.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. The gratitude thing, that's huge. And, we don't talk about this guy too often, actually, but we probably should because he's great.
Who's that?
Gary Vee. I don't know if,
Mm-hmm.
I know that you're familiar with Gary Vee, but if you're listening to this and you're like, who's that? Google him. Literally, like, just Google him. But Gary Vee is huge on gratitude, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the most powerful tools. It really, really is. Especially when you're going through a time to where you feel like you're, not enough, or you don't have enough, or all that kind of stuff. You take a second and you're like, well, wait a second. Let me look at this in a different lens,
Mm-hmm.
and let's throw some perspective. That's another word too. Let's throw some perspective in here, right?
Yep.
Then it's like, I don't have too much to complain about.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the process.
Yep.
It's just the process, and I just gotta embrace the journey and make it about that versus the destination.
And that's where that despair turns into hope for us.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Have I told you that we have a gratitude list in our house?
Yeah, you have. You
I
mentioned
thought
that.
I had. So, now that you've got this new house, you might want to add it.
I may.
It's actually pretty cool. It's neat too. Sometimes they forget about it or we forget about it, but then you walk by it and you just take a moment and you look at it and like, you know what? It's pretty cool to see the kids being thankful for that stuff. And anyway, it's an idea.
Yep. Awesome. Well, this was a good therapy session.
Oh boy.
No, it was good. It was needed, and I think that the lessons from this are good for anyone to really listen to, but even for us to just be reminded of it is really good as well. So, yeah, guys, thank you for listening today, and we will be back next week for a brand new episode. So make sure to check in for that, and we hope that whatever you're at with your own journey, that you remain positive, that you remain focused, that you remain intentional, and of course that you remain grateful as well for the whole process. So
yeah, this has been fun. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.